Hola chicos, how are you doing? Hola Francisco, ¿cómo
Hola
estás?
Jorge, how are ya?
Not bad, thank you. How's everything?
Everything is amazing.
Great.
So we are. We're one more week here about to start talking on a new podcast.
True, and this time is something overseas that belongs to Spain. You're gonna say what? How come? Yeah, I mean it's not common. There are many countries that they have territories overseas, and Spain is one of them. Probably the two more known bunches of islands that they are internationally known are the Balearic Islands, which is five islands in the Mediterranean. You know, if you see Corsica, Sardinia, Sicily, etc., that arch in between France, Spain in one side, Italy in the other, the five closest islands to the Iberian Peninsula is Spanish territory, is Balearic Islands. Francisco, I guess you know the other bunch of islands that I was talking about.
Yes. The other ones are a little bit farther. They are very, very close to the Equator. And there are the Canary Islands, the beautiful, beautiful Canary Islands.
Yeah, it's a bunch of seven islands, right?
Yes, seven islands
Seven islands.
where really what's something amazing is that it supplies a lot of the tropical vegetables for Europe.
Well, actually, mainly bananas. Yeah,
Yep.
it's one of the big producers of bananas in Europe. Well, Spain, because it's Spanish territory.
Yeah, but
Have you
we
been
export a
down?
lot to
Have you been
around.
down there, Francisco,
Yes,
anytime?
I've been a couple of times to the Canary Islands and it's paradise. It's
Yeah,
just,
it's beautiful. The weather is guaranteed and very stable all year round. So I always said that the Canary Islands for Europeans is like comparing to United States of America or North America, it's like Hawaii because the good weather is guaranteed most of the time. Do you think?
yeah, yeah. You always have very good weather. It's
Yeah,
like Hawaii, but without sharks.
that's right. That's a good thing to know.
You know, that's a good way. But anyway, that's not the land we're going to be talking about today.
True.
Because, okay, to our listeners, if we ask you a question, what countries that Spain have borders with, everybody would say France in the north, Portugal in the west, and that's it. But Jorge, you and I know that that is not true.
Yeah, we do.
We have three more countries that we share borders with, and that are
One of them is not far from where you live, Andorra. It's a
mhm,
tiny landlocked country in the middle of, practically in the middle of the Pyrenees. And the access there is just by road. They don't have even space for an airport. There is a heliport there, but it is mainly for medical emergencies.
yeah,
Can you imagine that?
it's super. I mean, it's mountains, so it's
Yeah,
like
it is mountains. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
so. One is Andorra. The next one,
A place that I'm very fond of, and it is Gibraltar, UK territory. It's in the south of Spain. So we have a border also with the UK.
so a lot of people forget about that we have border with the UK,
Yep,
but also we share borders with Morocco,
that's right.
and it
But
is
wait a minute, wait a minute.
yeah.
Morocco, many people are going to say, hold on, you have the Strait of Gibraltar, and the peninsula is not touching the north point of the African continent. How come?
There we go. That's the two pieces of land that we have abroad. We don't have them in the peninsula. They are in the coast, by the coast of Morocco, but they are Spanish territory and they're
Hmm.
called Ceuta and Melilla.
Correct. That's right.
So, Jorge, why don't you share a little bit of your knowledge about Ceuta, one of the two?
Well, okay, yeah. You are the one that's going to talk, obviously, about Melilla, right?
Yeah, I will do it by talking about Melilla.
Okay, good. Well, Ceuta, actually, it's ironic because you have in the Iberian Peninsula, you have Gibraltar, which is known as the Rock, popular nickname, and just opposite, in a direct line going to the south, there is another point in the northernmost point of the African continent, which is called Ceuta, Spanish. And how come that the northern part of the Strait of Gibraltar is kind of um, how was the word I want to use? The looked after UK, and the southern part is where Spain territory is. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
Well, but yes, I think it's weird, but it kind of makes sense from a political
Oh,
and business
absolutely.
point of
Yeah.
view. I
Yeah.
mean, we control the Strait of Gibraltar. On one side, it's the UK, on the other side, it's Spain.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
we can control all the ships coming in and out of the Mediterranean.
We have a chapter already done about Gibraltar that my dear friend Gail Francis, she cooperated with us. Remember her?
Yes, it's
She
so
was
sweet.
beautiful and sweet. And by the way, Gail, if you're listening to this, hello, here we are still.
I get
But Ceuta is a completely different scenario. Ceuta, the origins are Phoenicians, believe it or not. And there were some settlements that took place in the promontory of where today is the cathedral of the city. And they named the place Abyla, Abyla. Later, it was occupied by Greeks that they renamed that Hepta with an H, Hepta, Hepta. Hepta. So we're getting a sense of the name Ceuta in Spanish, Hepta Greek. But wait a minute, those toponyms go back to the designation that by the Romans. I mean, the city has in fact 7 mountains. It's very hilly, and they call it Septem because of a septem, seven. Get it?
Okay, I take it.
Yeah, yeah. And then during the Arab period, the word septem got distorted to septa, Sebta. That was the name on the Arab period. That it was from the year 711. That
Okay.
also coincides when General Tariq crossed the Strait of Gibraltar to invade the Iberian Peninsula, up until the beginning of the 1400s.
So Jorge, really? Okay, you're talking that Ceuta has been Muslim since 711, like the rest of Spain.
True.
So let's say, when was it reconquered? Was it the Catholic kings when they expelled the Moors, the Muslims in
I
1492?
knew you were going to say that. It makes sense to think that, but no, actually, it was in 1415, precisely, when the Portuguese invaded that strategic location.
So it was a Portuguese. It was a Portuguese colony.
Yeah, it was a Portuguese colony. Yes, call it like that if you want to. Or don't forget that before what today is Spain uh, sailed the oceans all over the world, etc., etc. The real masters of sailing, they were the Portuguese. So
Mhm.
I mean, they had many territories overseas, and Ceuta was one of them, and is very much linked to the Portuguese country in those days. But there is now another political situation here. It was in 1580 when Portugal and Spain, they both tried to unify the entire Iberian Peninsula and make it as a country. But it was a period, it was just only for 60 years. And it was in 1640 when there was a war of succession in Portugal, and Portuguese troops, they won. They won that battle in a town that today is called Bataya in Portugal. That, I mean, as a little fun fact, you know, my fun facts.
Of
uh,
course, we need a fun fact here.
the place there, I mean, it was non-existent. There was no town at all. It was just in the middle of nowhere. But because it was the place where the Castilian troops surrendered at that point in the year 1640, I repeat, they started to create a nucleus of population in that area, and that they named the place Batalla because Batalla means battle in
Battle.
honor to the
Battle.
winning again the independence. Let's call it like that. Okay, so that was that period. But then, Francisco, after that, do you actually believe that the Arabs didn't want to get that territory back, like to reconquer that?
I would assume yes.
Yeah, of course, they did, and they tried it. And it was in between the end of the 1600 up until almost 1730 when unsuccessfully, you know, Sultan Malawi Ismail, they tried, by the way, with the support of the British, because we're talking the same period when,
Of course, the Brits.
in between 1700 and 1713, that war of succession that we had in Spain, the British were supporting Morocco, not what today is Morocco, it wasn't Morocco in those days. What today is Morocco, the Arabs, they were supporting them to fight against Spanish troops. So that's why, to me, history is mind blowing because there is so many pieces of puzzles. And you say, this happening here, but what's got this other thing to do with
Yeah.
that? So here you are, British supporting the Arabs to try to win the war against or to the Spaniards and or Castilians, I better say, at the time, because they were trying to get hold of Gibraltar. How? I mean, that triangle there is really amazing.
It is a great historical triangle, I guess.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There was several sieges just to try and get the territory back. The last one was in 1790, and it was not successful at all. I mean, the reason that made Ceuta, Spanish territory, and not Morocco's, is because Ceuta belongs to Spain long before Morocco became independent. So legally, they cannot claim them. They keep claiming for them, but legally they cannot because they were not a country. We didn't took over that territory when they were a country as it is today, Morocco.
Okay. Again, it makes sense. I mean, it's strange, but it makes sense. So, Jorge, okay, once Morocco was created,
Yeah.
how come they never tried to rule over Ceuta?
Well, very good question, Francisco. Just let me tell you one thing. At the beginning of late 19th century and early 20th century, Morocco was divided in two. It was protected by France, one part, and the other part was protected by Spain. But Spain didn't recognize the independence from Spanish Morocco up until 1956, just in the very hard years of the Spanish dictatorship. Okay, so what happens? Ceuta and the other sovereign places remaining under Spanish rule. Spain considered them to be integral part of the state, but Morocco has questioned this point. Culturally, modern Ceuta is part of the Spanish region of the south of Spain, which is called Andalusia, my hometown or home region. But anyway, this is everything is political. Even from the very beginning, as I told you, up until now, everything is political.
Well, again, it's territory. It is the controlling of the Gibraltar Strait. So, hey, whoever wants to control that pass wants to control Ceuta. So I can imagine that everybody, the Portuguese, the Brits, the Moroccan, Spain, wants to have a foot in there.
Yeah, it's very controversial because now and again it depends on the whoever is ruling one side or another. Well, we know that in Morocco the government is a little bit totalitarian. They have the kingdom down there, and the king is the one who rules the country.
Yeah.
Not like in here. Here is a democracy, parliamentary democracy. So it's totally different, both status, both political status. So it's kind of it depends a little bit. If How can I say this? If Morocco wants to get something out of the European Union, they claim to Spain because Spain is part of the European Union. So that's their way to find some answers to some question or some requests to their petitions.
I mean, the thing is that the relationship between Spain and Morocco, I think they're very stable because
Oh, yes, they are. Yeah.
for them, we are the connection with Europe for Morocco.
Hmm.
And for
Absolutely.
Europe, Spain and Morocco is a connection to Africa. And we cannot forget that a lot of goods come from Africa to Europe via Morocco. So we need to have a very good relationship, business, diplomatic, very, very good relationship between
Yeah.
Spain and Morocco,
Hmm.
both for Morocco and Spain, but more than just Spain, for all Europe.
Yeah, because don't forget something that people might not very conscious about it, but fish banks in the coast of Morocco, especially in the Atlantic coast of Morocco, they are so rich that I would say that in between 20 and 25% of all the fish that is eaten in the European continent comes from that area.
Mhm.
That's a lot. That
Yeah,
is a
it's a
lot.
lot. It's a lot.
It's
I
a
mean,
lot.
so really, the relationship we have, it's very good. It's very stable. Most of the time, we're okay. Once in a while, we'll have little bumps, but pretty much we are okay.
Yeah, we're okay. And if just Francisco, if you allow me, just let me add this, little curiosities about Ceuta, about what's today. That I say that it offers a very quiet environment with the crime rate is below the national average. The city has a wide range of outdoors activities thanks to its beaches, natural parks, and the proximity to the sea, obviously. The surface, the area of Ceuta is only 20 square kilometers. It's very small. It's very
It's
small.
very small.
I mean, compared to the rest of the autonomous communities, the population. This is very interesting. Population is almost 85,000 inhabitants, and the Muslim population in there is 35,000. So it's like
Wow.
a 40% of the Muslim population out of the total, right? And there is like about 7,000 children that they go to Islamic religions school classes in Ceuta, and that is the data from last year, from 2023. Okay, so that is something to keep in mind because the diversity of the area, I think, is kind of a good thing. They are living together on an everyday basis, and to me, that is something amazing. But Ceuta boasts the confluence of several cultures. Um, of course, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, and Hebrew. Don't forget
Wow.
that many of the Hebrews that they were expelled in the Spanish Inquisition, they went to North Africa. So
Okay.
many of them remained in that area. Um, just maybe a cultural thing that was transmitted from family to families. When Ceuta was declared Spanish territory per se, um, I think that they just moved in there and they wanted to stay in Ceuta. Probably a little bit of homesickness or something like that. You want to call it that, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
and
how
also,
interesting.
yeah, it's like I mentioned before, the density of the population is very high and has absolutely dependence on sea routes for the communication and supply of everything. And from the point of purchase and sales, and the limitation of terms of housing, infrastructures, and the problems that come from being in the border with the Kingdom of Morocco, because there are many people from all over Africa that they go there with the hope to cross that tiny border, small border, to get into Spanish territory, which is part of the European Union. Okay.
In fact, when we were saying that once in a while we have political bumps, I think the
Yeah.
biggest bump we have it's immigration because all the immigration that comes into Europe, a lot of the immigration that comes into Europe comes through Spain, and it is from here. They go from Ceuta into the peninsula, so they have
Hmm.
to cross Morocco. And how we deal with this is one of the hot topics in Spain. Well, immigration is a hot topic all around the world,
Yeah, yeah,
but here in Europe, it's
obviously,
a
yeah,
huge thing.
yeah. Now there is just one more thing I want to add about this city, which is very curious. If you remember in that podcast we talked about Gibraltar. Gibraltar has an airport. And
Hmm.
the runaway of the airport is crossing the little arm that makes the peninsula to get into Gibraltar. But Ceuta, because of the location and because of the winds, many years ago the Spanish government tried to make an airport over there, but it's impossible.
Didn't
The
work.
winds, no. But in the other hand, there is a heliport with I think there are like about six pads for helicopters, and they have daily connections with
Time
Malaga.
stop. Chun, 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 chun. Okay, with Malaga.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's in summer is six connections, and the helicopter is I think it's only 8 seaters, including
The pilot.
the pilot. That's right, yeah. And the luggage is very limited because of weight, of course, and not every day because it depends on the winds. Remember, it's
Yeah.
just there on the Strait of Gibraltar. So that's
Okay.
pretty much what I have to say about Ceuta. And now, Francisco, it is your turn about the other place, which
Okay.
is
It is
Melilla, right?
Melilla. Melilla.
Melilla, that's right.
So what about Melilla?
Yeah.
Because to me, Ceuta has a reason, a political reason, a strategical reason to exist. But
Hmm.
really, Melilla, okay, picture this. You have the Strait of Gibraltar, and as you go to the east, you
Hmm.
almost reach Algiers. The next country to the right, it is Algiers.
Algiers.
It
Algiers.
is very, very close to Algiers.
Uh-huh.
And suddenly there we have a microscopical, microscopical piece of land that is Spanish. And when I mean microscopical, you were saying that Ceuta is 20 square kilometers.
Kilometers.
Uh, Melilla is half of it. It's 10. It's about 5 square miles.
Yeah.
That's it. And it has really nothing to do with controlling the Mediterranean. It has nothing to do with relationship with Algeria. To me, it's a mystery. But when we were deciding about this podcast, who's going to do Ceuta, who's going to do Melilla, I wanted to do Melilla because it's very close to me. Uh,
Huh?
my best friend from high school, Luis, his mother is from Melilla.
Oh, look at that.
The thing is that Melilla, it is one of the places where, when we were young and military service was mandatory, it was one of the places that all the people from the inland, they would go to Melilla.
True.
To
Oh,
Ceuta.
that's right. I
A
forgot
lot of
about
them
that.
went to Melilla. His
Yeah.
father, being from here, from Navarra, from the Pyrenees, he was sent to Melilla and he met his wife. So I've been a couple of times to Melilla because
Oh, you
my family
have?
is, yeah, I mean, I've gone with my friend to there, and it's a beautiful little place. But as a grown up, I've been there when I was a kid, and it was, Mediterranean party and fun.
Yeah.
But with a political brain or a more, why do you have this piece of land? There's no reason for it. Okay, but we have it. And as you said, Ceuta started with the Phoenicians, also Melilla. Melilla started with the Phoenicians of the 8th century before
Hmm.
Christ. Then was Muslim on the 711. Then it was Visigoths by the 4th century. Okay, the Visigoths came into Spain and they also ruled part of northern Africa. Okay,
Yeah, they did.
on
Yeah.
the 6th century, the Byzantine Empire takes over. The thing is that it's up and forth, back and forth. Here in 1492 is when everybody's expelled, Muslims and Jews, from the peninsula. As you were saying, probably they cross a lot of them into the northern part of Europe, of Africa. And the thing is that Melilla, strangely enough, became part of Spanish territory by 1497.
1497.
Which again, I have been researching what was there. I mean, there's no gold, there's nothing. So I don't know why it became part of Spain in 1497. Yes, again, as you said, the Brits had to be a pain. They went to conquer it in 1744. They didn't get it, but they were. And when you were talking about the Portuguese and the British Empire, another thing that we need to make clear for our listeners is that Portugal and the UK, they have always had, they're the big sailors. So they have always been helping and supporting each other. Okay, so that's why if Ceuta was Portuguese, it makes sense that they went the Brits over there. But to Melilla, I still have no clue. Anyway, the thing is that,
Francisco, do
yeah,
you know that still today, the oldest agreement, political agreement, still working with the same conditions that it was established in the middle of 1700s, it was the British and Portuguese. Naval, in case of war, they will defend each other. So it makes sense what you're saying
good.
now about Melilla and what I said before about Ceuta, that it was like initial steps cooperating one with another. And then in the 1700s, they made that agreement, that political agreement, that is still there.
Works today.
It's still working. Yeah. Do you know
Hmm.
that?
No, I didn't know. I mean, I
Oh,
know there was a pact between them, but I didn't know it was the longest one running,
yep.
that's still running.
It is. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense.
Hmm.
Anyway, after the British tried to do the whole thing, really Melilla became 100% Spanish, with all the rights and the whole thing by 1767. Okay. Yes, there's been changes of borders. This quarter of a mile is Moroccan. No, this quarter of a mile
Yeah.
is Spanish. It was all the way until 1860s when the borders of Melilla were created, right? So really, it's very, very, very small. And something that is a little bit different from Ceuta. Ceuta, you said it's 20, about 10 square miles,
Yeah.
okay? And population is 85,000 people. Melilla, it's 5 square miles, and it is also 85,000 people. It's
Oof, my
much
God.
more populated. It's
The
overpopulated.
density there of
Density
population.
is humongous, right? Yes, it has a very good way of living and they do very well, but density is very, very, very high.
But it has an airport. Is that right?
Yes, in Melilla you have an airport because as it's farther from the Strait of Gibraltar. When you were
Hmm.
saying that Gibraltar is very difficult to reach, I mean Gibraltar, Ceuta is difficult to reach because of the winds.
Yeah.
Thing is that you have all the winds coming from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic and from the Atlantic into the Mediterranean. So it's very
Mhm.
changing from one side to the other. This one is much more on the east, so it's very protected by the winds. So you do have an airport.
I have to tell you, I cannot remember really, to be honest. I mean, if I said if I've been there or not, I think I haven't mentioned that. I've been
Mhm.
only once, but it was just for a few hours. And that was when I was, oh my goodness, 19 years old. I was working at Malaga Airport at that time, and I was working for the Iberia company. And one day they needed someone because there was a kind of a strike in Melilla, and I was working just loading the bags in the planes in Iberia. I was 19 years old. I was strong. I was Superman in those days, right? And I could
No,
cope
everybody,
with.
when you're 19, you are strong and
Anyway, there was a kind of a strike in Melilla on the airport, so they asked for volunteers to fly from Malaga. I was living in those days when I was 19. Oh my God. And
long time ago.
it's just to go on one, it was like about 3 or 4 connections per day. A very small, tiny little plane. It was the brand was Fokker. I think it's a Canadian brand.
What did you say?
Fokker, the brand is Canadian. Shut
Fokker?
up, stupid. That's the brand. That is the
It sounded
brand
too
of
bad.
the
Sorry.
goofy.
Okay, be
Anyway,
serious.
we used to call them the cicadas because they were so noisy.
Oh,
Those planes, yeah, with the turbofans and everything. Anyway, they were asking for volunteers. So I went on a flight very early in the morning, and the capacity for each plane was like about 30, 35 seats, something like that. So they needed people there to download the luggage and upload or load back again the luggage of those people who were flying from Melilla to Malaga. So yeah, as being technical, I've been in Melilla. I have no clue how Melilla looks like, but I have to tell you, Francisco, when we were landing in Melilla, it was like landing on a carrier. I mean, the runaway is so short. Oh my God. It was like, wait a minute. I just left the sea behind and now the sea is in front of us. And you could see that from the window. It was like,
what?
what's going to happen here? What's going to happen? Oh my God. It's just, I mean, that's the reason why there's only very small planes that they can land there, and yeah, but that was my experience with Melilla. That's
Oh,
what I have to
you've
say.
been to Melilla, check.
Yeah.
I've never been to Ceuta. So,
No, neither have I. Neither have I. And I've been told it's really pretty. Ceuta they have a park, and many years ago, also talking to somebody from Ceuta, I said, "Well, your town." I said, "Excuse me, it's not a town. It's a city." Oh, pardon me.
excusez-moi.
Excusez-moi.
No, to me, Melilla, of course, maybe I have romanticized it because I was a kid. I was 17 or 18. I went a couple of summers there
Hmm.
and it was beautiful. It was fun. It is, to me, if somebody is willing to go to Morocco, really, Morocco is a fascinating country that I love. But yes, it is a very different culture. So if you
Hmm.
enter via Ceuta or Melilla. As again, I don't know Ceuta, but Melilla, it's a great introduction to an Arab country. Okay, because it's as you were saying, you have 30%, 40% of the population is Muslim. So it's a little bit of what we know, but a little bit of what we don't know. So to me, it was, the food, you have much more spices than we do here. The sweets are very, I don't know,
It's a melting pot. It's a melting
it's a
pot.
melting pot. There we go.
Yeah.
So I loved the memory I have. Of course, there were amazing clubs. Uh, At the beach was incredible.
Yeah,
I loved Melilla. I loved
yeah.
Melilla. But
So,
again, I haven't been lately. I mean, lately meaning the last 30 years.
wow, that's a long time. So, do we have any idea about what's the economy now in Melilla depending off?
Uh, Really, economy, it's a little bit about the militaries, military bases. It brings a lot of money to
Hmm.
Melilla. We have a little bit of trading with Morocco, which is not much. And tourism is one of the incomes, but it's not a huge thing. But as Ceuta, it depends 100% from the peninsula. I mean,
Hmm.
they need to ship absolutely everything to Melilla as well. So
Hmm. So, let's say that both of them are practically in the same
yeah,
scenario, same position.
yeah. To me, I
Hmm.
mean, they're pretty much the same. The only difference to me is that one, Ceuta, makes sense that this crown of Spain, the big empire, wants
The
to hold.
location, the
Yes, the
strategy, etc.,
location,
etc. Yeah, but
but
Melilla, yeah,
Melilla, that I love,
yeah.
has no reason, at least that I know.
Hmm. But and I assume also that because of the year that it was the Castilian or Christian or Spanish they took over, Morocco wasn't done yet as a country.
Yeah,
So that's why they still claiming for both of them. But legally there is no basis to make it because there was. I'm not gonna say nobody's land, but at least the country that is claiming them didn't exist in those days. So
yeah,
I believe that applies for both places, isn't it?
I think so. Yes, it's
Yeah.
a piece of land that it was no man's land, and Spain took over and it stayed. So
Okay.
yeah, that's it.
Great. O-
So
Okay, Francisco. Well, I think that we have covered. This is not going to be a long podcast because we had to say what we had to say about them both places, and that's it. So let us know about your website, please.
so my website, if somebody wants to check my trips for this year or next year, it is travelingstep.es.
Uh-huh.
And what about your website, Jorge?
Well, my website, if you go into Google and search for this,
Oh, traveling with Jorge.
everything will come up, including our podcast, Spanish Loops.
Okay, so
Because,
travelingwithjorge.com or .es?
well, actually, it's the transition right now. Probably by the time this podcast is out, it will be travelingwithjorge.com.
Okay. So hopefully
Yeah, you
we'll have it
see, you
ready.
see all everything, all my links, all my social media, the same as you. You have, I mean, you are
Yeah.
very active in social media and your webpage. I mean, you have so many tabs that sometimes you don't really know what to do, what to see first, and what to because, and that's what I like about the way that you promote your things and yeah, just sometimes you don't even promote. You just hey, go with your wife to cook on a Sunday evening and
Yeah.
perfect, and there you go and which I love.
Um,
I watch many of those shows. But hey, guys out there, just as we could say, stay on the loop. Traveling steps, traveling with Jorge, and here we are. What is this on my side in this episode? Thank you again to everybody. Have a wonderful time, and see you next week, Francisco.
everybody, adios, Jorge, and everybody have a wonderful week. Adios, amigos. Bye bye.
And as usual, we want to thank all our listeners for being there every week, letting us sharing our talks. Follow us in Spanish Loops in Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or your favorite platform.
And in Instagram, you can find us as the Spanish Loops Podcast. No spaces altogether. If you want to find us the quickest way, just Google Spanish Loops Podcast and you will find us. Hasta la vista, amigos.
See you next week.